Thank you all for coming. I'm delighted that you're here. I'm excited that you're here. And in speaking with some people over the course of the week, they said, well, what exactly is going to happen tonight? And I thought, well, this is not just a business. This is a church. We're a worshiping community. So let me tie it in with a kind of an Advent theme. And there are three goals that I want to accomplish that have something to do to Advent. The first one is, in Advent, we want to be attentive. And what I want to do is I simply want to provide you for information. We don't do this enough as an archdiocese, and I know one of the tasks that the Parish Pastoral Council has talked about is how do we not only get you information, but how do we get the communication going in a two-way direction. But quite frankly, I've been here for about 6 months, and I just wanted to give you an information and say, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm hearing. The second thing that we want to do during Advent is to be vigilant. That's communication, but with a direction and a purpose. So tonight what I want to do is I want to show you this information, have you mull over it a little bit, talk about it amongst your neighbors, take me out to Ruth's Chris, have a nice discussion with me. Talk amongst your friends. That's what I want this to be, the start of a conversation within the parish. And that we can say, okay, who are we? What does the Lord want to do with the great St. Monica's parish? And then the last thing is, during Advent, we want to be expectant. We're looking towards Christmas, and that's what I want to show you most about tonight. A lot of what you're going to see tonight is really great news. And when you consider maybe some of the challenges that the parish has not only gone through but has overcome, as we look towards the future, I think you're going to find that this presentation, hopefully tonight, gives you a sense of hope. So those are the goals that I want to achieve tonight. How does that sound? Okay. All right. Topics. Opening prayer. Just a quick breeze through the context of the parish over the last 3 to 5 years. And then what I want to do is I want to do two things. I want to say, okay, this is the parish, and these are kind of like the components that I see. And then I'm going to show you that same set of slides, and I'm going to say, let's look at these components from a quantitative point of view. In other words, where are we just doing an outstanding job? Where are we doing things well, but maybe we can improve? And where are the areas for growth? Whole presentation takes about 45 minutes. I may kick it up to about 50 because the people this afternoon said, I'm very familiar with the information, you are not. So what I'm going to probably do in a lot of cases is just throw the slide up, wait about 10 seconds, let you see it, let you read it, let you process it before I talk to the slide. Okay? So, let's begin. Together. Lord Jesus Christ,
thank you for having called us together. We offer you
Thank you. Okay. The recent past history, as you know, was challenging for the people of St. Monica. The closing of the school, some financial difficulties that the parish encountered. That's kind of like on the micro level. On the macro level, the difficulties of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, transitioning from one archbishop to another archbishop, the second grand jury, et cetera, et cetera. Nevertheless, there have been a lot of tremendous things that have happened. Archbishop Chaput has paid you a very nice compliment. When I first met with him about this assignment, he said, St. Monica is a Vatican II parish in the best sense of the word. It is a parish that in many ways is modeling what I'm hoping other parishes in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia could do. They came from the precipice. Not only did they come out of it, they came out of it quickly, and they came out of it well. So it is and you are St. Monica, and you are to be complimented for that. Nevertheless, the closing of the school has left very deep scars. What strikes me is when I talk to people sometime, there's not the anger that there might have been a year or two ago, but as they discuss it, you can see the eyes welling up, and you can see the tears coming. There is a depth of hurt, of disappointment that I think is a lot deeper than maybe we're even aware of. On the macro level, there is a certain level of mistrust. And yet, nevertheless, there's a sense where I think that people are kind of sticking their toe back in the water. Over the last couple of weeks, we keep getting checks in the collection of people who are in our parish but are not parishioners. And they've come to the church and they've put some money in the basket, and that tells us that people are starting to at least take a chance and come back. And you've done a lot of that in that this is starting to maybe be seen as a very welcoming place. But it's a different parish. What does a parish without a school look like, feel like, do, etc.? And so like St. Monica and St. Augustine said, forgetting the past and pushing on to what is ahead. The parish needs have changed, and the parish direction naturally concomitantly has to shift. Back in maybe 1950, 1960, that was the map. This is the map today. For the most part, the parish boundaries have not changed that much. So let's look a little bit, however, at the demographics. There are, according to the census, a little bit above 14,000 people, Catholic, non-Catholic, that live within the boundaries, parish boundaries of St. Monica. Of that, 26% of them, 38 people approximately, are Roman Catholic. However, only 6% of the total population come to Mass on Sundays. Naturally, some of them are non-Catholic. Why would they come to Mass? Why not? If the new evangelization is supposed to go out and reach all people of God, if I am the pastor officially according to canon law of all the souls within the parish of St. Monica, if St. Francis says go out and bring people in a relationship with Jesus Christ, my target cannot be this. My target has to be this, as does yours. And then here's the real goal of the immediate goal of the new evangelization, which is to go out and get our brothers and sisters who belong to our worshiping community who are not coming to us on a regular basis. In this case, almost 78% of our people are not regularly attending Mass, according to the October count. Why are they staying away? Why aren't they coming? Those are some very good and relevant questions that we have to consider, okay? So how do you do this? We're not a business, but we are an organization, and as such, we have to look at it in terms of some kind of an organizational approach. And so we look at the way things are now. Pardon me, I'm going to go off camera for a second. And over the last 6 months, I have consulted a number of sources. I've spoken with the staff, naturally. I've spoken with the Parish Pastoral Council. I've spoken with the Parish Finance Council. There was a questionnaire from 2010 that I took a look at. There was another questionnaire back in 2013 that I looked at. There was a very impressive report that was put together by the Finance Council. This was amazing. I mean, this went through contracts, this went through numbers, this went through history, it went through job descriptions, and I have to give a shout out to the Parish Finance Council for the work that they did. Much of the great work that had been done to turn the situation around was done on their watch. There was a subcommittee of men who have kind of looked at the parish, and they've gone through the whole buildings, and what they're putting together is an assessment on not only the big capital projects, but also the small maintenance issues. And I wrote about this in my census letter. There was a description of what a priest does that was put out a couple of years ago by the National Catholic Education Organization, a little matrix like this that kind of is a job description for a priest. And what I did was I sent that out to the Parish Finance Council and Parish Pastoral Council, as well as the staff and select members of the parish. And I said, okay, on that task, circle the things in green that I should be doing, circle the things in red that you say that's not your job. So what we've done is we've taken a number of streams and kind of said, okay, how are things now? Tonight is the conversation to say, what's the vision for the future? And to get there, there are 3 agenda. One of them is, what can we do that we don't do now? What are the things that we do well that we either want to maintain or maybe improve? What are the items that maybe we need to jettison, or are there recurring problems that we finally just have to solve? And as I said, a church is an organization. Classically, you look at what is called a SWOT analysis. Internally, what are the strengths and weaknesses of St. Monica? Externally, what are the opportunities and threats? Once you do that, you say, okay, what is the vision and the parish direction? Who are we? Where would we like to go? What are the processes? What are the resources? What are the policies? What are the staffing that we can do internally in terms of the organization that we align with the vision to try and make the vision happen? What are the activities? What are the behaviors? What are the values that we follow in the midst of that alignment? And what's the ultimate goal of our parish, as well as any parish? To sanctify, to evangelize, to catechize, to serve, and to govern. That's any church, but what are the specific charisms and what's the particular call that the Lord is now holding out to St. Monica? In each one of these areas, there are a number of questions that can be asked. Where are the particular strengths? Where are the areas for growth in each one of these? We can't address them all. Certainly not this year, but maybe what we could do is we could pick a couple and say, what can we do to improve as we move forward? And in order to do that, we have to look at leadership in a number of contexts, and these are the 5 contexts. What do I need to do to be the best priest that I can be? What do the individual members of my staff have to do to make sure that they're serving you in the best capacity possible? One-on-one, myself with leaders of teams, myself with Frank, myself with Mary, myself with Kathy. What do I do in terms of the one-on-one context to make sure that we're kind of forming these small little mini teams of 2 people for the benefit of the people of God and the mission? What about the various organizations? Youth, liturgy, adult faith formation. Why do they exist? What are their values? Organization would be the entire parish, and strategic alliances would be our relationship with our local politicians, police, fire company, other churches. Okay? So, for example, in doing this, pardon me, Matt, I'm going to embarrass you here. The model that I draw upon is a model called Good Leaders, Good Shepherds, which was developed by Catholic Leadership Institute. It's probably one of the more successful models that has been put out there for Catholic priests at about 50, Matt, dioceses? Oh, mea culpa. 85 dioceses and archdioceses around the country. I use it for a couple reasons. Number one, I've used it before and it works. The other reason is I helped write it. So I've kind of got a bias towards it. And I guess the third reason is I've got Matt Mannion as one of our parishioners. But I've seen it work. I've seen it work in the diocese and other places. And there are 2 key components. One of them are called key responsibility areas. What are the big buckets? What are the big areas where I say that's my job? I can play guitar, I can play piano, but that's not my KRA, it's Frank's. I can do spreadsheets. I do spreadsheets really well. It's not my KRA, it's Terry's. So what is my job, and concomitantly, what is not my job? Where do I focus? Where do my members, staff focus? Where do we focus as a parish? Because quite frankly, we only have so much bandwidth, which means that this is what we do and this is what we don't do. All right, so that's the KRAs. In terms of teams, what are the various teams that we could look at? And the process to go through to kind of identify these items is what is called chartering. And so it would be the parish staff, the parish councils, mission to the youth, women's groups, adult faith formation, etc. What are the small groups of organizations that are coming together to be disciples, to feed themselves, and then in turn feed others? And when you talk about KRAs and goals, these are the questions when you do the chartering process that you ask. It's basically that kind of 3-step process that we saw before. What's good? What needs to be improved? Who are we? What are the values? Why do we exist? If we were to go away tomorrow, what would be the impact on the parish? The process itself is about between 6 and 8 hours, depending on the complexity and how large the group is. It seems like a lot of time up front, but as Matt sometimes says, it's the long cut that becomes the shortcut. Because what is in there are not only the identity, the scriptural references, what are the KRAs and goals, what's the budget, what's the reporting structure, what's the schedule. There are all those details that can trip up individuals and teams and organizations if they don't answer them up front. And so also that we don't just get on a treadmill and all of a sudden when something comes up that we're not aware of, we're reacting rather than proacting. Okay, let me give you some examples of some of the KRAs that we've been developing over various organizations here. The first one is myself. Okay, this is my first KRA. Maintain a healthy lifestyle. Examine and maintain a healthy priestly lifestyle according to the recommendations of two particular documents. One of them is I Will Give You Shepherd, which was John Paul II's documents on priesthood. The other was the guidelines for priestly formation by the U.S. bishops. Why? To ensure a continued, effective, and vibrant ministry of the pastor. The parish staff. This is the whole team. This is all of them. We went to Malvern a couple of months ago and tried to determine who they were and what they wanted to do. This was the second KRA that came up, staff development. Within the next year, the staff will choose, plan, and execute one staff develop activity in each of the following areas: professional, spiritual, and service. And so the staff is saying, for example, we went to Malvern, the professional activity has already been taken place. Where can we do a spiritual and service activity so this not only enhances our human, spiritual, and pastoral skills of the parish, of the staff, it models for the other people in the staff what we feel we should be doing as an entire parish. Adult faith formation. In its infancy, we've met once, we're going to meet again, but this was one of the ideas that they came up with. They've put out information in the past. They've helped, for example, in handing out of the books during Easter, for example. They've done some book club activities. But one of the things that they were saying is, rather than just pushing information out there, should this information maybe be a little bit more refined and a little more specific, tuned to the specific needs of parishioners? So, provide information integrated with other parish programs. For example, maybe the pastoral outreach ministry, with a focus on healing the wounds which prevent us from enjoying a loving relationship with Jesus. This came out of conversation saying, you know what, there's still some hurting members of the parish, so rather than just kind of throwing information out there, let's pick the information where we know that there's some wounded people and wounded situations and try and address it in that way. Our high school youth formation. Number 1 KRA, spiritual and social activity. Plan, organize, and implement one social and one spiritual activity over the course of the next year, aimed at the parish mission for the youth, to encourage our young people to grow in their faith in a holistic way. I'm going to talk about this word formation a little bit more in the future. In terms of the parish formation, develop and coordinate a comprehensive faith formation and catechal plan for all parishioners. However, because, and this is basically falls on Mary's desk, because the adult faith formation is already there, in Mary's case, she's going to have a particular emphasis on and a focus on age 3 through elementary school to begin to develop the qualities of discipleship within the parish. A little dividing up of the responsibilities here. This is being taken care of. Let me focus my energies here. Again, this is going to be my KRA. I don't have to worry about this. This is my job. Somebody else is doing that other job. Pastoral council. Talking about communication. Be a connection between parishioners, the pastor, and parish leadership. How? Provide a two-way feedback to the pastor and timely communication to the parishioners. Why? Have opportunities to be a visible presence in the parish. 2, determine the best method to secure parish feedback other than surveys. Number 3, to participate and support the parish town hall meetings. I can say that this presentation was vetted by the parish councils and my staff, 2, 3, 4 iterations to be as effective communication tool to you as possible. And 4, to institute a program to welcome and inform new parishioners who may come in and say, what's happening at St. Monica's, what is St. Monica? Again, the new evangelization right here. Parish Finance Council. Develop the annual parish budget and update the parish 5-year plan with input from the pastor, parish staff, facilities committee, and pastoral council. And then also communicate that to the people of St. Monica and the Archdiocese. How come? To ensure the efficient use of parish resources in achieving the parish mission. And they're going to have a particular subcommittee called the Budget Subcommittee that would accomplish that. Music and liturgy. This is kind of a dream. Administer and direct a graded choral program. If you have a soccer team or a lacrosse team or something like that, you have like your normal team and then you have the so-called traveling team. This is the traveling team. When they mean graded, that means like giving them a grade. That means rehearsals. That means, going through, having cuts and getting your best people there. And so that where people will say, you know what, Mom, Dad, I'd rather sing in the choir than maybe play sports. But then have a really kind of a choir that would not only perform here, but also maybe somebody that would travel around the Archdiocese and really be something special and having this like St. Monica youth graded choir. Give them an opportunity to participate in the worship life of the parish, as well as to form them as choristers. And so there's a transition. How do you go from C to B to A, okay? And so I've looked at the various inputs. I've talked to the parish organizations. I've spoken with the parish councils. I've said, what are our strengths? What are our areas for growth? Started the conversation to say, is there certain training that we need to do? Are there resources and investments that we need to make? And then where are we 6 months from now? Where are we 12 months from now? That's kind of like the transition idea, the roadmap. So here's kind of like a scorecard, looking at the various organizations. The parish staff, the high school youth group, and the finance council are really doing very well. They've got a charter in place where they have it. We actually have a document where I described all those various components. Once we have that, we're going to put it online on our webpage so that everybody can kind of look and see what the expectations are. And so they're in pretty good shape. I have met with I'm meeting with the parish staff and with the help of Catholic leadership. They're looking at the individual KRAs and goals of my parish staff to kind of hone them as much as possible. Matt is also doing the same thing with the parish council. I'm meeting with the adult faith formation. Frank is already kind of looking at some ideas where he can kind of hone a little bit tighter, a little more tightly in terms of music and liturgy, and the others as you see there. Doing something's happening here, but we're not there yet. And then there's some other areas where we're really not. I have either met with them once or we haven't really started the whole process. I've met with the Legion of Mayor. I've met with the women's group. I've met with the pro-life group. I've talked to them about this process. They seem intrigued by it, but now we have to do the next step to say, okay, let's actually start investing a couple of hours and start moving it over towards the left side of the page. All right. Now, what I want to do next is I want to kind of break this down a little bit and look at the various components of the parish as the various groups have kind of presented it to me. Okay, so I'm going to do the components, and then we're going to look at it again and say, what's the status of those various components? All right, so 5 components: formation, outreach, liturgy and music, facilities, and finance. As the pastor, I am fed information, like I said, primarily from 3 sources: the Parish Pastoral Council, the Parish Finance Council, and then like a Building and Grounds Committee. We've also used the surveys, for example, and select parishioners to come in and tell me, okay? And so these are the various kind of pillars or kind of conduits through which we try and minister to each other. Mary Pisano in charge of formation. Nancy Stemper, she's a daily communicator, has said that she would be willing to take outreach. Frank Orman, liturgy and music. We would like to hire somebody to take on the facilities management. It's a $1 million complex. We don't have somebody here. Right now it's kind of being shared between myself, Kathy, Frank, and Terry. Not the most effective. And then Terry Carey naturally is in charge of the HR and the finances. So, first one, formation. Formation answers the question, how am I doing in terms of my relationship with Jesus Christ? And what does the life of a disciple look like? What are the components of a disciple's life? And this is what they are. Individual prayer. Small group where you could share your faith with others. Participation in the community worship, which would be primarily the Mass and the various other devotions that we have here. This is a very catechetically hungry and enriched parish. Much better than, I would say, a lot of parishes in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Between the book clubs, handing out the books, there is a catechetical level at St. Monica that is very impressive. Some kind of spiritual direction or regular confession with a confessor. Who is your coach? Who is your mentor? Who is it that helps you professionally? Holy leisure and social, which we do here very nicely and very well. Some kind of pastoral outreach to others. That's how am I doing as my relationship with the Lord? How am I doing as a person? How am I doing as disciples? Those are the components. Who does this? That's the other side of the matrix. All of our adults, all of our staff members, the members of the parish council. Each one of them has to ask, how's my individual prayer life? How's my sacramental practice? Have I been feeding my mind intellectually? Do I know when to quit it all and just go out there and relax and engage in some holy leisure? Catechists, sacramental, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the who. And I think this is a key statement. It's not just about having a bunch of activities. It's about forming disciples. Pastoral outreach. Outside the parish, inside of the parish. Outside, the shut-ins, the nursing homes, Devon Manor, Trinity, St. Gabriel's Food Pantry, Interfaith Hospitality Network. That's outside of our parish boundaries. Inside, former school families, for example, non-active Catholics, new parishioners, bereavement, integration with the outreach mission to the youth. How do we allow and how do we mentor our youth to minister to others? Key story here. This is moving from discipleship, where we sit and we receive, to apostleship. From the Greek word apostoloi, which means you are sent. What is the Lord sending me out to be, and what is the Lord sending me out to do? If I'm part of the new evangelization, what does that mean? In terms of liturgy and music, our adult choir, how do we make it better? Because it is rather good. How do we initiate or restart a youth group? Do we want a boys' choir? Do we want an all-girls choir? Contemporary choir? The graded choral program? Those are components of the liturgy and music. And then, of course, all of the supporting ministries of liturgy here on the weekends. Ceremonies crew would be about 6 or 8 people, probably young people. They would be my they would be my SWAT team. They're the ones that during confirmation, during Christmas, during Easter, during all the big masses, where I call them up and they know exactly what to do. They're my top performers that maybe rehearse once a mass, and they know when to ring the bell, who's in charge of the cross, who does the book, who does the incense, and I don't have to touch a thing. All right? We don't have that. Wouldn't it be great if we did? Had a really elite team. Okay. Infrastructure. Father Trader gets a lot of props here, because when you look at candles, keys, mics, lights, chalice, cruets, book, corporal, etc., all of those accoutrements are in exceptional shape. And a lot of churches where I go to, that's not the case. And what we use here for the celebration of Our Lady is very fine. Okay? Biggest complaint that I get. If I hear 10 complaints, 7 of them are about this. Part of it is the infrastructure of the church. The speakers that we bought are really not very good high-grade speakers. This is wood, this is carpet, this is sheetrock. This absorbs, this absorbs, this absorbs. There's a little bit of an echo here, but the acoustics of the church are really not that good. So what do we do about it? Facilities, fixed asset management, maintenance, just the routine maintenance, as well as custodial, making sure everything is clean and everything is safe. Capital projects, bigger stuff. Rental and scheduling of our facilities, whether it's the school, whether it's here, the Hagenbach room, the gym, security, technology, and our cemetery. And then finally, the last thing, our finances and our human resources. Checking, banking, cash, counting the money on Sundays, financial analysis and reporting to the financial council as well as to you, HR and personnel policies, and our child protection procedures. Okay, those are the components. Understandable? Okay, now, how are we doing? Green is good. Oranges we're doing well, but maybe we can get better. And red are where are the areas maybe where we can grow a little bit or we have to put some additional resources in. Formation. Religious education in the fall and winter, as well as in the summer. Two very different programs, two very different audiences. We've done this now, I think, for 1 year. The feedback, especially from the young children that took it, was overwhelmingly positive. There were people that had a concern because they're like, how can you possibly just form kids in a 2-week period? Answer, you can't. So what Mary is working on right now is, and Mary and Diane is there, how do you extend that? How do we bring these children and their parents back so that maybe there's something every month or every other month so that the enthusiasm that they had in that summertime period continues over the course of the year. But the fact of the matter is we've got a pretty decent program that covers kind of like both approaches. The high school charter is complete and they're moving forward in what they were trying to accomplish. And then recently the LTP program in cooperation with the Legionaries of Christ, a couple of mothers came and said, we were doing this at Isaac Jogues. They don't have the room, can we bring it up here? And so they brought the program up here with over 100 young boys. And they met like 9 over the past 9 weeks. They're going to meet 9 more weeks in the spring. A full formation program: prayer, a catechetical lesson, holy leisure where they play, and then also this idea of witness where they bring men in to say, "This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my hobby. How does that enhance my relationship with Jesus Christ?" Question that comes up a lot is, why don't you have something for the women? The 2 moms that helped us with this just happen to have boys. They tried it with girls maybe about 5 years ago down at St. Isaac Jogues. They put it out there. And unfortunately, no parents came forward to say, I'll do the girls' side. So these 2 moms said, this is why we're doing it. I'm certainly open to that. And in fact, the people who have been involved with this have said it's a co-ed program. All right, and we'd be more than happy to mentor with them and help them move them along and get some of our young girls in a program like that. Maybe we could do it. Middle school, sacramental prep, adult faith formation, and Mary Widows, doing well. But again, I want to kind of meet with them a little bit. Mary's doing some work with Diane to try and say, what can we do to kind of move this up and make it even better? Where are the areas for concerns? Like I said, this is not necessarily that they're doing poorly. The women's group are doing okay, but I haven't met with them. And to be honest with you, I don't know how they're doing. I don't know if they need any help. I don't know if they need resources. They're doing some great things in the parish, but I just haven't had the opportunity to find out, do we have an alignment there? Book club, same thing, doing great things. And I'm just now starting to meet with some of the book clubs to find out, how are you doing? Are you being fed? Can we do more for you? This is my big concern. The analogy that I like to use is if you've ever seen people who run a marathon, they'll run past the table and they'll grab a sponge and they'll put it over their head and they'll squeeze the sponge and the water comes out. If the sponge is dry, it's useless. And I really worry about the people who shepherd our adults and lead our committees and teach our children, that they give and they give and they give and we run them into the ground. You cannot give what you do not have. And if we're not feeding them, we wear them out, we give them nothing, and they get discouraged, they get tired, and they leave. And so this is why I'm focusing a lot on meeting with the various groups. So I get to know them, and I find out, and I say them to all the time, are you being fed? How can I feed you? I cannot feed 1,100 people one-on-one at St. Monica. It's impossible. I can probably feed one-on-one about 200, if I'm going to be realistic. So right now, my focus for this year is let me feed these 200 people who can then in turn go out and feed others. So that's the formation. Pastoral outreach. We do a great job at Berwyn Manor, and we've kicked it up. When I went there, when I looked at the mass accoutrements, the chalice, the keys, the candles, they were really pretty beat up and they were old. I said, look, we've got some nice stuff here. Let's bring it down there. Berwyn Manor was nice enough to give us some storage space. We brought down new vestments. We had some people in the parish that sewed some new altar cloths for us. Frank started to come down and add some music. And I must say, going to celebrate Mass at Berwyn Manor is one of the most rewarding things that I do every month. It's magnificent. And naturally, the people down there at Berwyn Manor appreciate it because right now, what they're seeing is something significantly better than they've had in the past. And I'm really delighted to be a part of that. And I credit especially the ladies who help me there on a regular basis. What are we doing well? Elizabeth Ministry, we reach a number of people outside the parish. As a matter of fact, we reach between 28 individuals and organizations. It's probably too many. And in many cases, it's just some financially supporting them. And Nancy Stemper, for example, said, if we're really going to reach out and be effective, it can't be writing a check. It has to be a relationship. So maybe we need to cut that in a little bit and really, for example, like St. Gabe's Kitchen, we've got a relationship there that we meet these people and they get to meet us in turn. Shut-ins, integration with youth, we're just kind of starting the conversation there on how we could possibly do that. Where are the areas where we can prove? On this Friday, I'm going to St. Catherine of Siena. I'm going to say Mass for the school community, and then I'm going to meet with our children from St. Monica's who go there. It'll be the 6th. It's the first time I've had the chance to go over there. In January, I'm going to St. Norbert's. So this is why this is in red. I just have not had the opportunity to go out and reach out to our families who were originally in our school. Non-active Catholics, I've already talked about that. New parishioners who come in here. Father Trader used to meet with them. I have not had the chance to meet with all of the individuals. I've met with some. Why not? I just don't have the bandwidth. You've seen what we've been doing. I can't do everything at once. I would like to. This is really important. And some parishioners have said, we'll help you with that. But that's why it's there, and maybe how do we move it up into this area. Bereavement committee, I'd love to have a bereavement committee. Some people who a month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year after somebody from St. Monica has passed away, that we reach out to the family and the friends and let them know that they're not forgotten. I want to tell you an outreach story. Why is this important? How many people here know the story of Marie McFawn? Marie McFawn. Marie McFawn never stepped foot inside this building. She was a Catholic and received communion at a daily basis. She was down at Berwyn Manor. She was unbelievably grateful for the fact that this small group of dedicated people from St. Monica came down and visited her not only on a monthly basis for Mass, but also on a weekly basis for communion. She died a couple of years ago and left us $750,000. If it wasn't for Marie, this parish might be closed right now. And we have utilized that in consultation with the Parish Finance and Pastoral Council. In some cases, it was part of the emergency fund to help turn this parish around financially. And we've also used it to pastorally support some of the programs and some of the mission here. And it came from here. She never came to Mass here. Now, I'm not saying, I don't want to make this kind of a binary thing. We've got to do this to get more money. That's not my point. But my point is, it's interesting that the most dynamic, the most remarkable, one of the most remarkable success stories at St. Monica in recent years when we were in a crisis came from somebody because we reached out. And this is, I think, what Francis is talking about. Okay, music. Adult choir. Youth choir and boys-girl choir, we're kind of talking about it. It's maybe in some preliminary planning stages. We're putting some feelers out there. There's a huge, huge, huge challenge here, and it's competition. What's the competition for this? Sports, yeah. This becomes problematic, especially around Easter and Christmas, because you have to rehearse. You cannot play soccer unless you practice. You can't play hockey unless you practice. You can't do Irish dancing unless you practice. You cannot sing in a choir unless you rehearse. And so what happens is they want to be in the choir up to the point where all of a sudden there's a conflict with one of the sports programs, and then guess who loses? The other challenge that we have sometimes is young children will show up the night of like Christmas Eve and they want to sing in the choir. I'm sorry, you can't do that. So how do we professionalize this and get young boys and young girls involved with it to say, you know what, this is what I really want to do. The contemporary choir, basically I've put two stipulations there. One of them is you do it, and the second stipulation is music selection has to go through Frank. That's his KRA, because I want to make sure that the quality of the music and the selection of the music is in tune with, number one, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing. Number two, it needs to be according to what we believe in the Catholic Church. And number three, it has to be something that is relatively singable and playable. Other than that, you want a contemporary choir? Make it happen. It's all yours. I hope you do it. And then the graded choir program, which right now, quite frankly, is just a dream. But a big dream. Why not dream big? Ministries, musicians, Music and Monica, doing very well. The lectors, extraordinary ministers, and all the servers here are magnificent. The decorum, the way they carry themselves, what I'll call liturgical presence is magnificent. The problem is we're wearing them out. We have too few. So how do we need to also do some updating and some training, but how do we bring forth the gifts of people who are Eucharistic in nature, people who love the Bible, people who would like to proclaim the word? This is an area where I'm saying we need a little bit of help, because I just keep thinking that we're riding our prize horses into the ground. The ceremonies crew, like I said, that's my dream. Next, facilities. Oh, I'm sorry, infrastructure. Vessels investments, like I said, excellent shape. The sound system, we did a sound analysis a couple of years ago. We still have that on file. How would you improve that, Father? It's basically a financial issue. You know, at one point, where do we invest in that to make it better? If you're going to have a contemporary music group, you have to have a couple of things. You're going to have to invest in the infrastructure. You have to have a soundboard. And here's the biggie, and here's where it really fails in a lot of Catholic parishes. You have to have a ministry, okay? You have to have about half a dozen people, because they're not going to be at every Mass, who are going to be on the soundboard, who are going to set up the microphones, set up the music stand, put out the wires, tape down the cords, listen to the music, put on the headphones, train themselves, understand how it works, and that's where it falls down. Because they want the music and they want the, you know, but there's a crew behind that if it's going to be done well in a way that's aesthetically pleasing and giving God the glory. Okay, and then of course the organ. I do not consider myself a musician, but I did study piano for 8 years and guitar for 6, so I know a little bit about it. And the organ is breaking down. I mean, I can hear it from week to week because I hear it at all the Masses. It's ciphering a little bit. It's squeaking. There's notes going. It's okay. But at some point, we're going to have to talk about what we need to do to replace that. Facilities, the custodial services and the cemetery grounds. Thank you, Liz, wherever you are. God love you. She takes care of the cemetery grounds along with Kathy. We do a nice job there. Recently, Kathy, along with Sandy, are you here? Where are you? I thought I saw you. Wave your hand. Thank you. Sandy was kind enough to help me and Kathy to kind of put together a series of policies and guidelines. So if people want to kind of rent the facility, we have something in place. We've been doing some rekeying around the campus to make sure that people are safe. Technology, Here's an example having to do with, we're going to put a new Wi-Fi here in the church within the next week or two. Here's a liturgy idea. Wouldn't it be great if we had a camera, 360 camera back there, and one right up here, where we could live stream the Mass here for the people who are shut-ins? It could be done, all right? Capital projects. This is a biggie. Let me put it this way. If you come in February and you're cold here, but please don't be surprised. Our boiler is on its last legs. We will probably get through this year, but we're going to have to do something about it. The air conditioner is okay, but it's leaking. It has to get repaired this winter. The roof is holding up, but it's starting to leak. The doors, when you consider it, we were repairing them, but it's how many people pull that door every single Sunday for 20 years? Ask yourself, how many of you have roofs, water heaters, boilers, and heating systems that all of them are 20 years old? Probably not a lot. It's not a new building anymore. What is really remarkable is how well the building has held up. But we're looking right now at the control systems. We can't get replacement parts because it's 20 years old and it's outdated. So we're right now, Rich Anachini is one, Mike Capoletti is another, and a few of the other men are saying, let's look at this in terms of a 5-year scope. Maybe we need to bring in some professionals to help manage that whole 5-year process. But before we do that, I'll talk about this a little later. What do we want to do and what do we want to be as a parish? What are the pastoral mission that we want to accomplish? And then how do we align that in a way that we can steward the resources in a way that's going to be effective and as economical as possible? And you have to kind of look at the whole scope of it. Finally, financing. A tremendous amount of work has been down here. Again, for Nancy and Terry and the Finance Council, the billing, the checking, the financial oversight and reporting, transparency. I had a CPA who's a deacon came in here and was looking at our financial reports. I also had members from the audit team from the Archdiocese come in here about a month ago, and they said, we know where you guys were and where you guys are. It's amazing. It's miraculous. And what you put out in your parish bulletin every 3 months, and the concomitant information that you put in the website, and the explanation is probably one of the best that we see in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. It's at the parishioners level, it's complete, it's cogent, it's transparent, and so there's been a lot of progress made here, especially over the last 6 to 9 months. Fine-tuning the bookkeeping, personnel issues, financial analysis, et cetera, we're pretty good, but we're trying to, like I said, we're trying to move that forward and make it a little bit better. What do we do about this stuff? I don't have an answer. They're just kind of like some issues that have come up. What do we do about especially our outreach to inactives, people who are disenchanted, people who are seeking? What about the strategy for two-way communications? Do we use social media to help in that? I talked about the camera. Can we improve our worship or introduce technology maybe in a way that reaches out a little bit and enhances it? And then what about these guys? All the priests that you have in your parish. There was a time where a parish this size would have a pastor and 2 assistants. I got some bad news. I got good news and bad news, depending on how you look at it. I'm all you got. And I'm all you're going to get. All right? So these are the books that I kind of guide my life and my priesthood. And like I said, the NCEA looked at it, and they said, okay, what does a priest do? He celebrates liturgy and sacraments, provides pastoral care, teaches the faith, leads parish administration. What would be the various things that we would do? Okay, teach the faith, preach the gospel, evangelize fallen away Catholics, teach RCIA, prepare people for the sacraments. And you've got to realize that for each one of these squares, a newly ordained priest is probably not going to be able to do as much or be as effective as somebody who's been ordained for about 10 or 20 years. So what they did was they took this grid and then they said, let's give it 5 expertise levels. So when you add it all up, 73 tasks, 5 competency levels, the people of God would expect their priest to do 365 individual activities. How many people here think I can do that? It's impossible. It's impossible. The problem is, and the challenge is, if Father decides this is going to be my KRA and this is what you want me to focus on, that means this isn't going to happen. And in the years past where we had lots of sisters and priests, that's what the people's expectations are. And that's where it becomes a little bit dicey because you end up disappointing people. That's my job. That's why they pay me the big bucks. Okay, so what's the summary? You know what? Give yourself a hand. Tremendous progress made in what you have done as a people of God who came together at a difficult time and have made an amazing process in a really rapid amount of time. We have good financial stability, okay? We're paying our bills. We're doing the mission. We've put a significant amount of money in reserves, so we're doing fine financially. We're starting to move from curiosity to hope to interest to people who are saying, hey, Father, what can I do to help? Which is a very positive sign. There are some shadows, as I said before. This Philadelphia Archdiocese is not out of the woods yet. There are some macro issues out there that certainly affect us. There is still some hurt and disappointment in the parish. That's going to take some time, but maybe a direct engagement to make sure that people are being ministered to and healed. There's the secular culture that we're fighting. And then what about the non-actives and the non-interested? It's 80% of our parish, 78% of our parish, and they're still there. And we still love them and we want them back. But there are things that we can do that we can build upon. There are groups and programs and people who are interested and they are engaged. As I said before, the catechetical level in this parish is extremely impressive. We do have some resources now that we can invest. And we have a very highly dedicated and active and motivated parish staff and council. I can tell you, I'm working with a parish staff that is one of the best staffs that I've worked with. And I can say this, probably the best staff that I ever worked with was in the clergy office. Never saw a group that turned out more work faster at higher quality than that group. The group of people over there in that building, they're getting awfully close. And they're starting to build a team, and they're starting to build an esprit de corps. We do a lot of laughing, and hopefully you can come and engage us at some point because they really want to be a place where they want to be a staff that helps have miracles happen. Good, honest parish assessment. Long-range strategy is starting to form, and some short-range plannings and activities are already starting. So that's kind of those are the building blocks. Okay, this is somewhat negotiable. This is where the conversation starts. This is where I want you to go home, call up, email, write, talk, et cetera, et cetera. Start gossiping with another. You have permission. All right, break the 8th commandment as much as you want on this. What I'm thinking of is meeting these groups. These were in like the yellow section. Start chartering them, giving them an identity, kind of giving them a mission and some direction, getting to know who they are. So that does a couple things. Make sure that I'm feeding them and they're getting fed, getting to know them on a more intimate level, and making sure that the resources and human beings or resources are being stewarded in the proper way. So I think I can probably do that between now and May of June of next year. Within the next 3 months, we would like to hire a youth minister and a facilities manager. All right, we've got financing for it. And right now, there are people who have looked out. We have a nice job description. We've got KRAs and goals for the youth minister. So it's not somebody that would come in and we say, well, go figure it out for yourself. We have very, very concrete ideas on what we would like them to accomplish. And like I said, a facilities manager, we need somebody to come and help us with some of the larger issues, as well as some of the maintenance issues. I want to get some feedback from the town meeting. And this is the next big step. If we're looking at this parish project, at some point, you're going to have to bring a professional in who's going to look at the scope and the various components. Who are the key players and cost figures that would be involved? Architects, HVAC people, et cetera, et cetera. What are some conceptual ideas? What do we do with these buildings next door? But before we do that, you and I need to have a conversation. What are your ideas? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What do you think we should be doing? What is God calling us to do? And that's going to probably have to be a formalized process because we're going to get a lot of ideas on the board. And then you kind of bring the professionals in to say, okay, we're going to take all these ideas. Some of them we're just going to push out to the edge because either they're unrealistic or too expensive. But in the middle here, what are some ideas? What are some drawings? What are some models? What are some preliminary cost figures? So that's within the next 3 months. Let's have the conversation further so that we could take the mission and the vision and start aligning it with some long-term resources. My timeline that I've put out there is 5 years. But for the sake of full disclosure, let me just say this. That would change for this reason. I put in a call to Bishop McIntyre last week. He called me back. I'm calling him back and forth. Here's the reason. All over the Archdiocese, we are having these parish pastoral plannings, and they're looking at all the parishes and all of the areas and saying, how are they doing? And they're looking at various matrices, how's your parish, et cetera. We haven't done that in this area yet. And the last thing that I want to do is to start a process and then I'll find out something that the Archdiocese is going to do something that would somehow change that. So quite frankly, I want to have a very candid conversation with the bishop and say, this is what we're thinking about doing. You made the mistake of sending me to Berwyn. You knew who I was. You know the way I operate. And I want to take a couple of key members down there and have a conversation with the Archdiocese and the bishop and saying, okay, what's the timeline are we looking at? When is the parish pastoral process going to have? What do you see in terms of the future of St. Monica? And if you don't know, tell us you don't know. All right? And then we will plan accordingly. So we want to help the Archdiocese and let them know what we're doing. Same time, I'm expecting some kind of transparency and professionalism on the part of the Archdiocese for us. We don't want to have happen what happened earlier, where we put a lot of money into a resource and all of a sudden we know what happened. We don't want to do that again, do we? Nod your head. No, that's not fair to you. That's not good stewardship. Okay? Thank you very much. We'll see you in a little bit.